Come on, Blue Jays and all baseball fans. We're streaming live on the Jays from the Couch YouTube channel, and you have the best seat in the house to enjoy the views from the On Fek Circle, presented by JaysFromTheCouch.com. The On Fek Circle is Tuesday's place for Blue Jays talk for all. Thursdays, you can enjoy Sunny Side of the Dome, hosted by Karen Suter. And of course, Mondays brings you the live stream of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, created and hosted by Jays from the Couch senior editor and founder Shaun Doyle. All of our live streams start at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the YouTube channel, on the Jays from the Couch Facebook page, and it even tweets at Jays from Couch. Be sure to share your questions and comments during the live streams. Maybe even give us a like and subscribe so you'll always know when we'll be talking Blue Jays baseball. I am your host, the madman across the border, the Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. Welcome to my living room. Usually I have my little Blue Jays man cave set up, but why not? Let's shake things up a little bit. Show you the kinder, softer, gentler side of the Fekless Wonder. Plus, I know that my beloved hound dog Busy gets very jealous from when Karen's cats always walk in front of the screens during the podcast or during her show. So at some point you might see him. In fact, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see his snout kind of sticking out. He might make an appearance on the show as well. Make it actually more watchable, I would think, if you have a cute dog to look at rather than this mess up here. On the eve of Groundhog Day here in the United States, I am streaming to you from Pittsburgh, PA, like I always am, about 79 miles to the northeast. Punxsutawney Phil's going to come out of his little hollow, look around, probably see a shadow, which means 6 more weeks of winter. And hopefully that's not a foreboding thing. I mean, weather-wise, big deal. I mean, the weather's always crazy. It's almost 50 degrees here today. Yesterday it was below zero when I woke up. So you never know what's going to happen weather-wise. But 6 more weeks of winter could bode ill for the Blue Jays as they get ready and start preparing for what should be not only an AL East division crown, but also a rather deep playoff run. So we'll see what's happening. Going to kick off the show though with Fekless Wonders. I talked about on a previous On Fek Circle that I'm trying to get away from editorializing. I don't set out to do that, but I guess it's just ingrained in me to share, not just opinions, but information or viewpoints that aren't normal. Good evening, Lionheart. Well, thank you for joining the On Fek Circle. It was great speaking with you last night along with Shaun Doyle on the podcast. Hopefully all of you caught the live stream yesterday. If not, you can catch the Jays from the Couch radio podcast anywhere your finer podcasts are available. But 6 more weeks of Blue Jays winter with no transactions of the lockout. Hopefully that would not be the case. But we're going to talk about what would happen if the Blue Jays see their shadows tomorrow. And I didn't know there's actually a Canadian Punxsutawney Phil. They don't call him Punxsutawney Phil. Let's say his name here. Shubin Acady Sam. I guess he comes out of his little hole in Nova Scotia every year, so he's Canada's answer to Punxsutawney Phil. Again, you can only put so much credence, I guess, in a rodent meteorologist, though many people accused me of being a rat and being rodent-like in my opinions and in my shows. So, would rather have a cute, furry Punxsutawney Phil or would rather have a Fekless Wonder? But I'm going to kick off the show is kind of get the editorializing out of the way every week now, and a segment we're going to call Fekless Wonders. A bit of self-promotion from my Twitter handle at Fekless Wonder. So if you are on Twitter anytime, feel free to send me a message, reply to anything I might have put up there. But on Fekless Wonders, I'm just things that have been kicking around in my head. And maybe there are things that we haven't covered when I'm appearing on the podcast, which I've been able to do, and much thanks to Shaun Doyle and to Karen Suter for uh, allowing me to spew my Fekisms, on the podcast every week. Just kicking around. I didn't get to it, and then once it's out of the way, we can kind of focus on the main topic of the show. I do want to also introduce more history, team history, player history things as weeks go on. Admittedly, this week I just wasn't feeling it. And I'm hoping to be able to bring on a couple of former Blue Jays here in the coming weeks leading up, into the opening day on March 31st. I'm still trying to work those details out. And once the lockout is over, there is going to be a big announcement from Jays from the Couch.com and the radio podcast. We're going to sort of launch it here from this show, but it's something that loyal listeners, Lionheart, Matt Sweeby, Dr. Bob Herbert, there's all sorts of regular viewers that might be interested in, might want to kind of join in the fun. It'll be sort of a cooperative event, but that's going to happen once the lockout does end, and we'll touch on the details on a later show. But my primary Fekless Wonder today is who will be the secondary left-handed relievers for the Blue Jays. Now, on the podcast last night, Shaun Doyle and I, we did talk about the bullpen and so-called fringe pitchers that could be added. But when you look at the 40-man roster, there are precious few left-handed options that you could say would be dependable relievers on a championship or division-winning team. Now, this isn't 2019, 2020 anymore. Okay, this is getting serious. Okay, we're back now in the days of 1985 and 89, leading in to 90 and 91 and 92 and 93. Yeah, this is a serious Blue Jays contending roster. So we can't just sign anybody or kind of throw players out there in roles that they really weren't developed to fill and may be ill-fitting into a relief role. So there's Tim Mesa, who I think has proven that he can be counted on. Yeah, he had, just like any relief pitcher, he had a tough stretch last year. I think for about maybe 2 or 3 weeks he was kind of so he had a couple of blown saves, but he was Mr. Automatic as far as coming out and keeping the Jays in the ball game, stranding inherited runners. And he really was the only left-handed reliever in the bullpen for long stretches of time last year. And he it's unfair to ask one guy, no matter how good they are, to share that burden. We don't do the mix and matching of pitchers anymore because there's the 3-batter rule, which I would love to see go away, with this CBA, because a lot of the COVID-related rule changes I think are going to expire. So no more runners on second base and extra innings. I think those things are all going to go away. But to have just one left-hander, that's a tough ask. So I was looking at the roster, and we talked on the podcast about Ryan Borucki. I'm not sold on Ryan Borucki. I mean, he is the longest tenured Blue Jay at this stage. He has been in the organization longer than anyone else on the Blue Jays, not only just a 40-man, but just in the organization. He has had plenty of time to carve out a role for himself. Yes, injuries have been an issue with him. Injuries with pitchers as a rule are an issue. But, I just don't think, as devastating of a changeup as he had when he was drafted and, and signed with the Blue Jays originally, I don't think he's ever figured out how to effectively use that changeup in game situations. I mean, it's very few pitchers that can just throw it, that can rely on a changeup no matter what the situation is. It's a kind of a pitch that you really almost have to set up. And I don't think he's ever kind of figured that out. So he's out of options. So it's make it or break it this year for Ryan Baracki. I don't think he's going to be the secondary left-handed reliever on the Blue Jays going into 2022. I was surprised to see both on ESPN.com and CBSSports.com that Anthony Kay is listed as a reliever. I maybe I'm missing something. I thought he was being groomed as a starter. Okay, sure, you've got four really outstanding starting pitchers now in your rotation, but that fifth hole is still so iffy. You don't really need another lefty in the rotation per se. It'd be nice perhaps, but you don't really have to do that. But is Anthony Kay the answer? I would guess as a long reliever or a middle reliever or a mop-up guy, I guess. But are you really maximizing the talent of Anthony Kay if you're sticking him in your bullpen? Yeah, that one. I mean, I, I I wouldn't lose sleep if Anthony Kay was the secondary left-handed reliever. But again, he's not somebody that I think you bring in the late innings. So Charlie Montoya loves matchups and he loves, tinkering it out. And they always have the printouts, what pitchers would best match up against what lineups and all. But I don't know that to really tap into K's strengths. I don't know that putting him in the bullpen is the answer. Again, maybe I missed something, Blue Jay fans. Again, I like to try to keep up on things, and Lord knows, there's enough sources, especially behind the scenes at Jays from the Couch. We often kick around ideas and things like that. I don't remember talk of Anthony Kay being a bullpen piece ever coming up, but I guess he's in the mix. Taylor Saucedo, he's going to be 28. Again, a guy that's been in the organization for a while. He was drafted by Alex Anthopoulos, so he's not among the new wave and the new crop of arms that have been developed, under the Shapiro and Atkins regime. That's again he signed young, so the younger pitchers can take a couple of years, but really, did he really show much last year when he was up? I mean, he was serviceable, but I don't know that I think of Taylor Saucedo and say, "Oh, well, good, that's our second left-handed option in the bullpen." I mean, a nice guy. I saw him on another uh, podcast and show the other day, and he seemed, nice enough and everything. But you can't nice the ball over the plate, and strike out Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton or JD Martinez. I mean, you have to have, you've got to have the stuff, and I don't know that he is a dependable option on a pennant contending team. Kirby Snead? I didn't want to even talk about Kirby Snead. So, again, as we head into the offseason, I can't. Left-handedness is going to be a big commodity that Ross Atkins is going to need to cash in on, both in the bullpen, perhaps as the fifth starter, going out and acquiring a fifth starter. Yes, I know Ross Stripling is the fifth starter on paper, and he's talked about he's geared up and he's ready to fill that role. I would certainly rather see him start games than be in the bullpen. But again, this is not the 2019 or 2020 Toronto Blue Jays. He needs to be consistent if he's going to be that fifth starter. They need to have 5 dependable starters, not 4 dependable starters and a guy that will occasionally give you a good game. Yes, there's Nate Pearson, who they're going to put in the bullpen in a what did Atkins call it? A close to starter role. I think he's better if he was at the back of the bullpen, but that's what they're saying they want to do. I don't think they've given up on Nate Pearson being a fifth starter. Maybe they're going to try to see, give him kind of a short leash in a relief role. Perhaps he'll be an opener occasionally if the rotation's up against double headers, or they're just trying to give guys like Ryu an extra day's rest. But I don't know. It's like if you look at the roster, I don't know that there's a left-handed reliever that on the roster that's signed by the team now that can be that second left-handed reliever. May I suggest Andrew Chafin, who he had a tough year his last year with the Diamondbacks, but that seems to be a song that lots of pitchers that come out of that organization sing. Robbie Ray, um, yeah, they seem to struggle for whatever reason. Even Madison Bumgarner, when he got there, struggled at first. I don't know whether it's the ballpark or it's not as high in elevation as Denver and the Colorado Rockies, but you're still in lighter air when you're in Arizona. So I don't know what the situation is, but he did okay as a Cub. He saved 5 games for the A's last year. He has a good repertoire. He's not going to blow the ball by you. He can top out at 96, but he's probably 91, 92, 93. And he has a proven record. He has appeared in 70 games 4 times in his career. Now, again, a lot of that was a situational lefty back when that was still such a thing. And I think another year he had 60 games, in the high 60s. So he's a guy that you can run out there on a regular basis. So I say Andrew Chafin could be the answer for us. I also wonder, once the lockout does end and the transaction freezes end, are the Blue Jays going to see their shadow? Is there 6 more weeks of heavy lifting and winter work that has to get done? Or did they do enough with the hot stove before the lockout to kind of warm everybody's feelings and beliefs about how they can get off to a solid start? I mean, they had a great finish in 2021, but they stumbled because a lot of the roles, bullpen, third base got solved eventually with Santiago Espinal, but Kevin Biggio was hurt and struggled when he was playing at third base. There was a lot of missteps that caused them to fall a little bit short come the end of September, end of the year, and not making the playoffs. So there's going to be an expanded playoff of some sort going forward. So I guess that gives you a little bit of breathing room. So maybe there is not a shadow that you don't want to see. You don't want your team to cast a shadow in certain ways, but there are things that need to get done. And that shadow could be a foreboding one that, because of no fault of the front office. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Ross Atkins, and I've called him a rodeo clown and compared him to Wile E. Coyote and all the ridiculous plans that Wile E. Coyote did before he fell off cliffs and had rocks fall on him. I have done that. I'm not a Ross Atkins fan, but he can't be blamed for the lockout. It's not his fault, but there's a lockout, and the momentum that was carrying into the lockout on December 1st, kind of stopped dead for a lot of teams. But for the Blue Jays, I think because of the way they like to do business, and this goes back to the days in Cleveland when Shapiro was the GM and Atkins was the minor league and development coordinator, they like things more methodical. I mean, we rant and rave, and Lord knows, I lose my mind when I think there should be trades made and they're not making trades, and what's the issue? Why are you waiting? That's just not their comfort level. They like to formulate plans, back it up with analytics, scouting reports, whatever it is, and then implement those plans over an entire offseason. They're not going to have that. All 30 teams, even the Orioles and the Diamondbacks and the really bad teams, are going to come out guns a-blazing once the lockout transaction freeze ends, because they need to add to their bench or get people they can stash at AAA, signed to minor league contracts. So that shadow is going to cast some concerns and doubts at third base, in the bullpen, with the fifth starter. So in the spirit of Punxsutawney Phil, if Ross Atkins was in a hole in the ground, and what a wonderful no, I don't want to go there. Don't want to ruin the the warm fuzzy feeling we're having about this. And Ross comes out of his office and looks around and sees his shadow. I'm sure they're aware of what they need to do. Will they be able to do it, and will they feel comfortable in that kind of uber competitive environment? I'm not sure. When it comes to signing free agents, and again, that's a more longer stretching, methodical approach to targeting free agents. And no, I still don't believe the whole Seager. They were in on Seager. They're in on whatever free agent, Noah Syndergaard, whatever guys that did sign before the lockout. Do I think they were really in on all those guys? I really don't. I think a lot of that was agent speak, and it's something that we want to believe. I just don't believe they were in on Seager. I think that just misdirection. Okay, that's a rodeo clown move. Looky, don't gore my buddy over here. Looky, you know. But again, free agency, I think Atkins works well in that kind of situation. When it comes to trades, I don't know that he's as comfortable, though he did demonstrate a willingness to move big time prospects when they acquired Jose Barrios and moving Martin and Simeon Woods Richardson. I mean, that was a gutsy move, considering Barrios had said, everyone who's in Minnesota, I want to test the free agent market. I think it says a lot about the front office, as well as culturally, long term, the Blue Jays' footprint and presence in Latin America. I think that makes a big deal. And I know that people don't want to mention the name Roberto Alomar anymore in Blue Jays land. But you can't take away what he did on the field. You can ostracize him and remove him from any Hall of Fames the team might have, or no longer work for the organization. That should be done. But what he did, both on the field, with the youth development programs that he always organized, where there was always a big tournament every year at the Rogers Center, and what he's done in the Puerto Rican Winter League, so Roberto Clemente Professional Baseball League, he has a franchise there. It being Roberto Alomar, of course, he called it RA12, rather than name it after the city that they're playing in. But he has that presence. He has that swag still in the Puerto Rican and Dominican realms of baseball development, with youth programs. So I think that played a big part in Barrios going there. But let's go back to this casting of the shadow. I don't think that they have done enough where they're not going to where there's not going to be a shadow coming out of the lockout, and where they can say, look, I'm really comfortable with our roster as it is. They need bench bats. They desperately need at least one left-handed bench bat with some pop. Not necessarily a slugger, but with some pop. I looked at the 40-man roster. There is not a single left-handed hitter on the 40-man roster. There's none. So even if you're a Josh Palacios fan or believe Kevin Smith is what the recently released rankings are, I didn't see it. But if you believe all of those things, there's no left-handed help within the organization that's major league ready, that's on that 40-man. They've got to pick up a left-handed bat. I'd love to see Corey Dickerson come back. He's one of my favorite baseball players ever. He's a big family guy, and I think his family considerations might prohibit him from seriously coming back for one more year with the Blue Jays. He'd be the perfect guy. I don't know that that's going to happen. So you need to get a left-handed bat somehow for your bench, whether it's an outfielder, whether it's an infielder, whatever it is. And I take it back. Actually, I forgot. Kevin Biggio is a left-handed hitter. That's my bad. Kevin Biggio is there, but God, how can I forget him? I love that guy. But really, as far as a bench player, there are no left-handed bats. There's none. So they got to get moving there. They have to get pitching depth. No matter how many times the front office will say that there's pitching depth, there's not in the organization. There are many young pitchers that are miscast in roles. They were developed as starters, are being force-fed to be major league relievers. And it's not like the old days where, well, we're going to make them relievers. Like Jimmy Key was a reliever. Jim Clancy did some relief work. You had guys like that. David Wells, they were in the bullpen, but they were really just biding their time until they made it into the rotation. And that's not the case here. They are having to take the pitchers they have and turn them and put them in roles that they were not developed to be and that they may not feel comfortable or have the weaponry, if you will, the arsenal to succeed game in, game out as a relief pitcher. So there's going to be a shadow. Okay, it's not just Punxsutawney Phil saying there's 6 more weeks of winter weather, which, by the way, 105 times he has seen his shadow. Only 25 times did he not see his shadow. So it's more of a touristy kind of thing. It's kind of a cute little tradition brought over by German settlers. But that doesn't really predict what the weather is going to be. It's the same thing here. The Blue Jays have shadows that no doubt the fan base is going to see. Media covering the team is going to see, and Ross Atkins and his team knows that they need to get rid of those shadows. They need to shine a spotlight on third base, on the bench, on a bullpen, on a fifth starter. So it's kind of a cutesy way of preparing you guys that a lot needs to get done. This team is going to be a contender. They're not a division winner yet. They're not a pennant winner yet, but they could be. And hopefully, when the lockout does end, those shadows will be seen and they'll find a way to reheat that hot stove so it's not a dark, longer winter than Blue Jays fans have already had to endure. I'm about out of time. Again, we're here, at least during the off season, every other Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Karen Suter's show is on Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the YouTube channel. It's available on Facebook, on Twitter. And of course, the show that spawned all of this madness, Jason on the Couch Radio podcast, and that's hosted by our senior editor and founder Shaun Doyle. That's Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch all the shows and archives and all the said places we just talked about. I'm Steve Fek, the Fekless Wonder. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Hope to be able to talk with you during the next podcast. Take care.